girl. The next artist is also a writer. He's British and his name is William Hogarth. And he had a pug that he brought everywhere with him, sort of like me. And his pug's name was Trump. And I know it doesn't look like a pug, it's more leggy than we're used to. What is happening here is the pug is an ancient Chinese breed. And in ancient China, the Chinese people believed that in the wrinkle of a pug, you could see the symbol for royalty within their wrinkles. And so the pug was being removed from China by trade. The Silk Road was opened, and this pug, or pugs in general, were being used to trade. And so they were being removed from China. And so they weren't as small. They weren't, you know, they didn't have that sort of Pekingese look to them, that sort of bulge eyes anymore. They were bred and crossbred, maybe unintentionally, but they became more leggy in society. And William Hogarth has a statue, a bronze statue in England, which also features Trump, his pug. And to the right is a painting of his friends and family, and then you can't see it, but that's Trump again, right there. And then there's sort of a spaniel to the left. So pugs, these are different pugs in art. They started to crop their ears, boo-hoo, so sad. But the ears started to become smaller, the nose started to become closer to the face, becoming a brachiocephalic dog. And these are more lap dogs that famous royalty had. Josephine, which was Napoleon's wife, had a pug and used the pug to transfer information to her, you know, to Napoleon, but also it is said that to men that she was having affairs with, she would transfer little tiny letters in the collar. And Marie Antoinette had a pug that she had tried to bring over from Vienna when she married Louis XVI in France, and was unable to, but she eventually got pugs in her castle again. These are porcelain figurines that are popular, especially in Europe, and they're strange sort of background. They're used by the Freemasons, which is sort of a secret society, and this branch of the Freemasons are called the Order of the Pug, and you are initiated, this is very strange, awkward for me to say, but I'll say it, you get initiated into this order by smooching the rear of one of these pugs. As bizarre as that sounds, it is true. And these are housed in England in, I think, a museum of the Freemasons. This is a very famous painting called Arnolfini's Wedding Portrait, and it is, I jumped back up just a bit, and I apologize, that slide must have been out of order, but this is a wedding portrait. She looks like she's with child, but she is not. She is holding up her ruffles, her gown of the day, and you can't see it, but there's a tiny little, like a Cairn Terrier right here that's looking right at the viewer, which also is a symbol for like marital fidelity and loyalty. And within the mirror in the back, people have said that it's sort of like the eye of God that is looking at this marriage and giving them a blessing. And the dog is a symbol for life and youth and children to come. This is Mary Cassatt, which was an American that was born in Philadelphia and eventually decided that she had enough with America and moved to France, became very close with Degas, and Edward Degas, which painted ballerinas. And Mary Cassatt lived the rest of her life as Parisian. She's an expat that never did get married or have children, but she did paint children quite a bit. And then you can see in this painting, she started to add little dogs. And this particular dog, I think, became a muse for her and also a lifelong companion. And to the right is a portrait that Edgar Degas painted of Mary Cassatt with, it seems like it's a different dog. So this is a Mary Cassatt painting, which is the Impressionist time period, sort of loose, long strokes, layered paint. And to the right is a portrait that Degas had painted of Mary Cassatt. That's in the National Gallery of Art here in America. The one on the left is. Picasso was a big fan of animals, and he painted this dachshund named Lump, and it wasn't actually his dachshund, it was a friend of his dachshund. A friend of his had a dachshund that lived with him for a period of time of 4 years, and Picasso was just totally enamored by this dog. He drew him often, painted him often, and was heartbroken when the man moved out and he didn't get a chance to see Lump anymore. So Picasso had many animals, but I would say through my research, Lump, the dachshund, was probably his favorite. George Stubbs is really an equestrian painter, master of equestrian anatomy, and he painted this with, I think, let's see here, okay, late 18th century. And this is to express the natural fondness and curiosity that these two animals have for each other. There's deep contrast between the white and the deep dark browns. It was Stubbs' practice. I thought it was interesting to put this in. This is very odd for me as an artist and also an art lover, that he painted the foreground animals first and then painted the background. So that must be hard to kind of get around the animal's fur, but he decided to do the background and the sky later. Just an art lover's side note, what you're seeing here is something called atmospheric perspective, which means that usually what artists do is they make the sky lighter towards closer to the viewer, and then if you're going, let's say, back of a room, it would be darker towards the back of the room if you're drawing the inside of a room. But when you're outside, it's the reverse. So when you're outside, it actually would get lighter as you go back, because people sometimes can't see that line. They don't realize that that's a horizon line. So this would be water, and then this is, like I said, this is cloud cover, but this is also an example of atmospheric perspective, where essentially it gets lighter as it goes back. And he painted that after he painted the animals. Claude Monet was a painter of lily pads and gardens, and before he became very famous in France, he was a pauper and met this woman on the right named Camille, who became his wife. He was only 18 years old, and he was 7 years older than her, and they were animal lovers from the very beginning, but he was very poor, and this was one of the first portraits that Monet ever painted, and it's named, the title of it is Camille with Small Dog. And then to the left, I'm not sure if you can read it, but it says Monet there, and this is just titled Head of a Dog. So I'm going to give you two other slides. This is Claude Monet at the end of his life and his eyesight. These gardens he built. He was also a master gardener, and he built all of these gardens himself. And they're still there today. It's a major tourist attraction outside of Paris. They're called Verger. And to the left is like a beagle, I guess, that he acquired later on in life. And then to the right is Claude Monet painting, it's an unknown woman, but also another dog. So you can see artists throughout time have been fascinated with dogs. And we'll see that. We'll see that in a few slides. This one's fun. Have you all seen this one?
Yeah.
Yeah. This is, and there's always a dog cheating. There always is. I didn't realize that I didn't know what this was. I always thought it was sort of folk art or flea market, art. I didn't know what this was until I put the slideshow together. And this is called A Friend in Need, which means that actually two of them are cheating. And it says it's perhaps the most famous of Coolidge paintings. It depicts 7 dogs sitting around a table playing poker in the wee morning hours. It derives its name from the bulldog handing an ace under the table to his friend. with the additional ace, the dog with his back to the viewer will have 4 aces. So he's helping his friend cheat, you know, and there's been different variations, I'm sure we've all seen it, but that's sort of fun depiction of dogs. Not much to say about this one, although they do use this quite a bit in art schools to demonstrate rhythm or action. It's a widow, a woman that is walking her dog. It's an example of something called futurism, and I think what they meant by futurism was just a breakaway of the traditional painting style, and that was in 1912. And it is a widow who is walking her dog, and you're seeing that the action of the dog, the many legs, it's blurry. So that's really all I know about this painting. There really isn't much said about, research done about this. This is Frida Kahlo, who was, throughout her life, she was a huge lover of dogs, and she owned a deer and a monkey and these, what they call show low East Queen teal dogs, which are the hairless Mexican dogs, and they're spelled with an X. Never show, I think they're called show low dogs, that's for sure, but it starts with an X. And the ancestry of these dogs traces back to 3,000 years. And Frida Kahlo was a Mexican artist who married a Mexican artist named Diego Rivera. She contracted polio as a child, and her leg was permanently shorter and skinnier than the other. And that is why she decided to always cover her legs with these long traditional skirts, layered skirts. So when you think about Frida Kahlo, people often associate it with the unibrow, the flowers in the hair, and the layered dresses. But what they might not realize is that that was not the style of the time in Mexico. She is dressing in an old-fashioned